Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jacob Dragovich, and today I'm here to talk to you about face negotiation theory. I will begin by talking about the three main assumptions dealing with this theory. Then I will move on to the key concepts, mainly focusing on individualism versus collectivism, and then mediating conflict across cultures, and all of the techniques that are associated with it. So, according to the Introduction to Communication Theory textbook by West, the first of the three assumptions states that self-identity is important in interpersonal interactions, with individuals negotiating their self-identities differently across cultures. Now, to understand this first assumption, you would need to know what self-identity is. And it's basically just how you see yourself as a person, or all of the attributes that made you who you are today. That being said, this assumption is basically just highlighting the fact that being exposed to different cultures will result in different self-identities. And being raised in a different environment will cause you to have a different self-identity. If you're raised in a certain environment, you're going to be raised with different thoughts, different beliefs, different ideas, different life experiences, different life goals, and all of these attributes are what make up your self-identity. So naturally, different culture equals different self-identity. Now, Ting Toomey also touches on the fact that one's self-identity can make or break a relationship. And this is done in the matrix of face. So how you see yourself is usually made evident to those around you by your body language or your posture or your nonverbal communication skills. So it's always important to try to maintain a positive self-identity in order to maintain a positive relationship with others. Now, the second assumption states that management of conflict is mediated by face and culture. To understand this assumption, you would need to know what face is. And it's basically just how the public sees you. So, this assumption is saying that how individuals concerned for their face and their culture that they were raised in actually affects the mediation of conflict. And conflict can destroy a person's face, whether you're right or whether you're wrong. The word conflict itself normally comes with a negative connotation. So, depending on one's culture and how passionate they are about keeping a positive face, they will either try to resolve the conflict peacefully and discreetly, or they could be encouraged to openly air their differences, such as we are here in the United States. Now, the third and final assumption states that certain acts threaten one's projected self-image, or their face. And this assumption is just basically portraying that certain acts can hurt how the public sees you, your face. So there are different techniques that individuals will use to avoid this vulnerability or attempt to restore their face after the fact. So the first of the technique is called the face-saving technique. And this is an effort to avoid embarrassment. And you can do this, for example, we'll say informing an audience that a speaker has a heavy accent or maybe speaks broken English or a second language before they begin a presentation. That way the audience knows what to expect and they're not caught off guard, humiliating that individual. Now there's also the face restoration technique. And this strategy is used after the fact. And what it boils down to is basically it's just an excuse. And you're trying to restore your public image by making excuses, blaming something else or somebody else. Such as showing up late to work. Maybe you come in and you tell, well, my alarm clock stopped working and I didn't have coffee this morning. My kids were running late and I had to get the kids to school. So it's all these excuses is just you trying to restore your face. So, and then one of the last little concepts here with the third assumption is the face-threatening acts. And they'll threaten either a positive face, which is your desire to be liked and admired, or they can also threaten a negative face, which is a desire to be free from others. But moving on to the individualism versus collectivism now. Individualism is basically when someone is more concerned about their own success than the success of a group. And collectivism is the opposite, where somebody is more concerned about the group as a whole rather than an individual. Individualism is seen to be more self-motivating, autonomous, and independent thinking, and is seen in countries such as the United States, Canada, Great Britain, or the Netherlands, for example. Collectivism involves the emphasis of harmony, respecting parents' wishes, and fulfillment of others' needs first. And this is seen in countries such as Indonesia, Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, and so on. So, managing conflict across cultures now, according to Ting Toomey's Translating Conflict, there are many different techniques for managing conflict. The first of which is a pretty straightforward and simple technique called avoiding, where you're just going to avoid the conflict entirely and not throw in your 2 cents when you see some sort of disagreement going on. The next technique is obliging, which is more of a passive technique and can be used as a sort of flattery. If your boss comes up with, an idea that you really don't agree with, but you kind of want to suck up to them a little bit, you may just give in and say, yeah, that's a great idea. So it's more or less just rolling over and not causing any grief and, giving in. So the next technique here is compromising. And this is one of the most common techniques out there where, you're on one end of the spectrum, they're on the other end, and you just meet in the middle. You find a happy medium. So, and you try to make both people as happy as you can, and neither one of you is going to get exactly what you want, but you aren't going to get the opposite of what you want either. Then next you have dominating, which is when someone uses their power or influences others to help them attain the outcome that they wanted. And this would be such as, a head of a company talking to his employees and saying, hey guys, when we vote on this, I need you to vote this way, because that's what he wants the outcome to be. Even if that's not what the employees want, some of them may feel pressured to vote in that direction. And then finally we have integrating, which is actually sitting down and talking with others, brainstorming and collaboratively coming up with the best solution to a problem. And this is the most fair way of approaching a situation, but it's also the most time consuming, so that's why usually it's left at the wayside. So, in conclusion here, face negotiation theory is a very interesting theory when you look into it. And the 3 main assumptions mainly deal with one's self-image, conflict, and finally the threat that certain acts can have on one's image. So, some key components of this theory are the differences between individualistic and collectivistic lifestyles, and also the techniques people use to manage conflict differently throughout cultures. So now you as an individual need to be aware of the culture that you're surrounded by and the acceptable practices for that specific culture. There is no right or wrong way to live your life. You just have to either mold your lifestyle to be an acceptable means for that culture that you're living in, or you have to be prepared to utilize some of the conflict managing techniques that I had spoke about earlier. Also, always try to keep a high self-esteem and a positive self-image. And this will help you to be more confident in yourself, and hopefully your positive self-image will be contagious to those around you, and they will also see you with a positive face. Thank you very much, and have a great night.